competency, adult and juvenile. We call it OCRP, Outpatient Competency Restoration Program. I do the evaluations, write the report. Whereas Ms. Alves, that you'll meet next, I think, she does the actual competency restoration, so which is group-based with adults. And also we have a program for juveniles now of competency remediation, and I do the evaluation and prepare the report. I go to court, occasionally have to testify for these cases. The competency remediation work is done by Ms. Sawyer, another social worker here. The other population I work with are the NGBRI, not guilty by reason of insanity. I follow them with our staff. There's about 90 of them in the outpatient setting, 80, 90 of them.
When you say you follow them, is that you're following their treatment plans? You're following up on treatment plans?
Well, really what we do here is make sure that they are adherent to the court order that spell out their conditions of their release. These are individuals who have been found not guilty by reason of insanity. Typically they have been committed to as inpatients to St. Elizabeth's for a period of time. Then they get to be released under conditional release, meaning that there are certain conditions attached to their release, and they're still committed to the department by court order.
I'm running to 64, I'll be back.
Right. So our job, the job of the Department of Behavioral Health, is to make sure that they are compliant with, that they follow the conditions of their release in the community, which includes a treatment plan. So, as a psychiatrist, as a forensic psychiatrist, that's my job here, it's called forensic psychiatrist. I interact with the court system, interact with the patient, the committed patients, and interact with the system of care, case workers, house managers, lawyers, you name it. For some of these people, I can't give you a percentage, but a significant number of them, I'm also a provider, direct care provider. I do their medication management.
Okay.
And it's running a bit late now because I've just seen one of them that I see monthly. The case manager was there. But the bottom line is that that's also something that I do. Third thing that I do is evaluation for civil commitment. So at the end of, back to the competency restoration process. So an individual is involved in a criminal case, has charges pending. I'd say his defense lawyer raises the issue of their competence. They're incompetent. They get to be evaluated by psychologists who work at the courthouse. They're also part of this forensic division. Okay?
Part of your team?
Part of Dr. Johnson's
Okay.
division. They are at the courthouse. There are two psychologists who do this evaluation. Let's say that they are opined incompetent and in need of restoration of competency. The restoration of competency can be done. And these are not people who are incarcerated. They are in the community, in a pre-trial. The restoration of competency can be done at the hospital, inpatient. Dr. Godwin was here before me. It's one of the things that they do there. And it can be done outpatient, here. Ms. Alves will explain you how, My job is to do the evaluations and periodically, and send the report to courts. We also have fellows, meaning people in psychiatrists in training, forensic psychiatry training, who come here to do a rotation under our supervision. they also write these reports. But what I wanted to say is that at some point, if they remain incompetent, do not regain competency to stand trial, there can be a finding of non-restorability. So the person is so impaired, person is so intellectually impaired, or so ill that they cannot learn the material, they cannot really become competent. So that is called a Jackson finding, and from there an evaluation for civil commitment, because the criminal, the story of the criminal proceeding ends there. If they're not, they cannot be tried if they're incompetent.
Okay.
And so typically this time will be the prosecutor who will say, okay, well, I cannot prosecute this, but I want to know if this person needs to be civilly committed, right? And so evaluation for civil commitment, different statute and everything, are also done at the hospital and the outpatient setting, and I do them as well, some of them. So these are the three things, that I do here. And I will add that, again, we have trainees, so part of what we do is also training and supervision. We have these fellows from the Forensic Psychiatry Fellowship program based at St. Elizabeth's, directed by Dr. Candilis. And also we have people who come here for observerships from other programs. Like, for example, Walter Reed National Medical, Military Medical Center, and so I don't know if that's part of of your chart there, but there is also a training and supervision component.
So just make sure I understand the process. If we're talking about the court systems, we have psychiatrists or psychologists down at the court systems who make a determination that they need a competency evaluation, outpatient competency evaluation, whether it's juvenile or adults. Those are the people that you deal with after they've made that determination.
So if you want to look at this in general, there are pre-trial individuals.
Correct.
And there are post-trial individuals. The post-trial that we deal with are the not guilty by reason of insanity.
Correct.
So that's one group. The pre-trial are the one that we're dealing with because of competency. They can be juveniles or adults, mostly adults. The adults are referred to us by the court, this is Superior Court, for outpatient restoration here at 35 K Street. Then we evaluate them, we write a report, if needed we testify. That's our job, okay? The juveniles are also referred here, but the difference is that we don't have psychologists at the courthouse who evaluate the juveniles.
You do not?
We do not. The two psychologists who are located at the courthouse who evaluate people pre-trial for competency only see adults.
Okay, so I just want to make sure.
So that's the difference. So if the issue of competency of a juvenile, and it's called competency to proceed because the language is different from in the juvenile courts. If that question is raised, they come here directly. Or the department uses other evaluators that are contracted to do this kind of work, okay? The difference is that those two or three people get paid by the hour, right, to do that work. We don't get paid, we get our salaries, okay? So either I or one of these people do the evaluations, then write the reports.
Of the adults?
Not the juveniles.
Of the juveniles.
Okay?
Right.
The adults all come here. And we do the competency restoration here.
Right. Okay.
And we have two psychologists at the courthouse who screen them
Okay, that's what I wanted to get to make sure I understand. So, in the courthouse, when it's determined that we're gonna have a competency evaluation, we have psychiatrists at the court.
Psychologists.
I'm sorry, psychologists who screen them.
Screen them and evaluate.
And
They are
evaluate
on
them.
two levels.
Right.
The first is the screening, the second is the evaluation,
Okay.
full
So-
evaluation.
After they've completed their screening and evaluation and determined that we need some form of restoration,
Correct.
then they come here or to St. Elizabeth's, but
Right.
that's where you pick them up.
That's where we pick
You
them up.
pick them up
That's-
if they're deemed for, that they can be for restoration on an outpatient.
Mhm.
Now, is that same assessment done by the two psychologists at the court, that this person is
Yeah.
suitable for restoration staying within the community?
Yes.
Okay.
So the judge decides. Now,
Okay, they make the
The
recommendation.
psychologist, the psychiatrist will give an opinion,
Right,
but the judge always decides.
understand.
Now, they come here, they do the program, and I can tell you it's 4 days a week, one group in the morning, one group in the afternoon. They run, Miss Alves runs these groups. So they go through these educational groups. They also get referred to mental health treatment if they need it and if they don't have it. But it's not that we provide mental health treatment to them. We only provide competency restoration. The urgent care clinic may provide treatment, but we keep it separated, in this pre-trial phase, treatment from competency restoration evaluation. My job is purely to do the evaluations and write a report and testify. I don't do the restoration. Okay, restoration is done by Ms. Alves, and a lawyer also participates. So now so this is, I hope this is clear. So juveniles, adults, differences, but this is pre-trial, right? Now, with the post-trial people, they're not guilty by reason of insanity. As part of our interactions with the court and as part of our job of monitoring them in the community, we have an outpatient forensic review board. The department has an outpatient forensic review board, to which is made up of people who are not, working in a forensic division, but have significant roles in the department. For example, it is chaired by the chief clinical officer. All right, so our job in that regard is to present periodic updates. It's an internal process. Annually or so, we present updates for each of these, X, Y, Z, NGRIs, not guilty by reason of insanity. And we get recommendation from the review board about, what should be the next step for them. They have requests. Their, direct care providers may have requests and may have opinions, right? Case managers, whatnot. And then those are presented to the outpatient review board, together with risk assessments, psychological risk assessments that are done here. Dr. Johnson will tell you about this, by a psychologist who has a contract with DBH to do them. Okay, but doesn't really work for the forensic division. Is it somebody outside who comes in with a fresh mind and doesn't work all the time.
But what I'm hearing you say is that for all of these people that have been deemed not guilty by reason of incompetency.
Insanity.
Hmm?
Insanity.
Yeah, okay.
Incompetency and insanity as
Two different things, I'm sorry. But you keep up with them
Yes.
and you evaluate them.
Well, I treat them, some of them. We coordinate, we help coordinate the provision of services to them. And certainly we monitor that, what is contained in these court orders that define the conditions of their release is actually done. So they are entitled to receive services, and they are expected to be compliant with the plan, right? So our job is to monitor and to inform the court periodically. We may also have to go to court to testify if there are hearings where the defense, because they all have attorneys, and the prosecutor, the government, do not agree on what's the next step, right? So those are called evidentiary hearings, and we may have to testify. For example, if one of them wants to be unconditionally released, which means no more commitment to the system, but we do not support that, and the government, of course, their job is to go against them, then it's also incumbent on us as forensic outpatient department to write to the court with an opinion and to testify if needed. Does that make sense?
Just that it does for what you've explained. I'm getting my head wrapped around the fact that we had somebody who is not guilty by reason of insanity, but they're still out in the community.
Well, and here's how that happens. That somebody may be not guilty by reason of insanity. And that's the adjudication. That's what they pleaded, that's what they've been found, right? Then there is the next step in the process. It's a 50-day long evaluation, psychiatric evaluation, that takes place at the hospital. It's called a Bolton evaluation. Then that is followed by a Bolton hearing. At the Bolton hearing, depending on testimony of various experts, what is determined by the judge, decided by if that person is dangerous enough to themselves or the community that they have to stay at the hospital, or if because they've been treated and so forth, they're not dangerous. They don't reach that threshold of danger. And though they can be in the community. But if they are in the community, they're still committed. Now, typically, what happens is that at the Bolton hearing, the person will be found still dangerous after 50 days, after the adjudication of not guilt by reason of insanity. But then that risk, the level of risk, is reassessed periodically. And with treatment, the risk becomes lower and lower. And so that's when they get outplaced. Now, from here, they can go back to the hospital if they don't do well, if they relapse on drugs, if they manifest signs of acute mental illness and so forth. So that's part of our job, re-hospitalize people. This is sort of a back and forth thing. The goal, really, for them is to obtain the unconditional release, or to have less and less supervision from us, less and less of us in their lives. Right?
I got it. I understand.
Got it?
Yep, I do. Again, we just got a couple, 2 or 3 minutes.
So
Okay.
Okay,
If
let's
you
have a
have
quick
questions.
question to make sure, because I understand. I thought I heard you say that you only perform the evaluations for restoration.
Yeah.
Okay. And that would be for competent restoration. But I also heard you say you perform treatment. What treatment do you, how
Well,
do you define
again,
treatment?
you gotta have clear the distinction between the pre-trial population and the post-trial population.
Mhm.
So when we talk about competency, we're talking about pre-trial.
Correct.
And that's where I do only the evaluations and the
Evaluations on the
reports,
pre-
no
okay.
treatment, okay, for this population.
Mhm.
The post-trial, the NGRIs, this is where we have sort of a we wear two hats sometimes,
Okay.
the clinical and the forensic, right? Whereas in the other population, it's only purely forensic.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Now, couple of quick points for clarification. Well, no, because you just clarified the one where you said that you're also their provider, so you clarified that. You then said that at the onset indicated that you do this part-time. Is that?
It used to be a full-time, and it still is a full-time position, but I requested to go part-time because I have a private practice, and I wanted to have.
Okay, that's the only thing, you say no more, that I just wanted to make certain that you're saying that
This
DBH.
is still a full-time position.
But you are part-time at DBH.
And DBH
and then
had the
you've got
flexibility to let me do this,
Okay.
but they are trying to hire another part-time person too, because this is full-time work, full-time load.
So my joke would be, am I a part-time patient? That's okay.
Well, you say because I'm I'm
Never
part-time.
mind, I have sometimes my sense
No,
of
but
humor gets.
it's not that it's all together that's full-time. It's not that
I
following this patient require full-time. They are in a community, they have full-time providers. That's another thing that I don't know how much you are, aware of this, but the system of care of these people is quite elaborate. They have core service agencies, they have community support workers, they go to day programming activities, they have people who help her with their finances, they may have representative payees for their benefits, they may have legal guardians, they may have conservators. It's a pretty extensive system, and each, for example, they have housing provided to them, and then there is management of the housing. There are people who have intellectual disabilities who have a whole other set of services in place through other agencies. Our job is really to coordinate this in a way, and we have two very good social workers who help with this, who are full-time.
Okay. Robbie, you have any other questions? Again, I want to be respectful of your time.
Okay, well, if you have other questions, just give me a call. What is that you're doing, so that I
Okay,
have a sense?
again, because we were 5 minutes late, I didn't give you any preamble, but we were brought on by Dr. Dalton and his office to conduct a staffing review, a study for the entire, for his area. That includes, we've done 3 divisions so far: the Access Helpline, the ARC, and CPEP.
Okay.
Okay, and now we're doing forensic, youth services, and then we will start next week with adult urgent care.
Okay, and then you go to the hospital as well?
And the hospital is, we're scheduling a visit to go out to the hospital as a part of all of this.
And you're going to meet with Dr. Johnson, right?
Oh yeah, we met with Dr.
Okay.
Johnson. We actually started with her on Monday.
Because forensic is a little, its own thing, and you gotta get used to.
Oh, trust me, this is one of those that for me is mentally challenging to sort through, as you were just saying, that this maze of services and treatments, and how you are dealing with those that are inpatient, those that are outpatient, those that are juvenile. If you can spare me another.
For example.
Okay.
There are, I don't talk about that.
When you
because
do
I
that, don't forget your point.
The jail, right?
I want to make sure that you come back to juvenile, so go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll say the juvenile as well. But, we, as part of this division, as she can tell you, there are people who work at jail who actually their main job is to, as I understand it, is to help individuals with mental illness who are released to have services in the community right away, right? But she can tell you more about that. Now, there are people who are in jail, sitting in jail, waiting for competency restoration. That has to be done at the hospital. They don't come here, outpatient. If they are incarcerated, they cannot be retrial in a community, right? So, but that's another thing that this division's done. Also, back to the juveniles, occasionally I may have to go to the detention center to do an evaluation, so they don't always come here. And the juvenile restoration, which is actually called remediation, it's a different term, but it's the same thing. It's done by another person who specializes in that. And she goes find them where they are, home, libraries, and it's done on a one-on-one basis. So if a juvenile is found incompetent by the judge, according to our opinion or not, then they have to go through restoration. And this is called remediation. And we have somebody who is part of this division who does just that. And then they come back for another evaluation, okay? But the difference is that, and also, the one difference is that we may have to go and do the evaluation in a detention center if that's where they are, okay? Whereas I don't do evaluations in jail for adults. I'll tell you that in one case I've done it because it was a juvenile who was being tried as an adult, and I went to the jail. So does that help? So with the juveniles, the restoration or remediation, as it is called, is done on a one-to-one basis. They don't have to come here to groups. The person goes to them. I'll add one more thing that I've done once in a year and a half. I've done an evaluation for insanity, for criminal responsibility. So that was a pre-trial person who was pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, was at the jail, and I went to do the evaluation for criminal responsibility, wrote a report. That is very rare, okay? Because usually this evaluation for criminal responsibility or insanity are done at St. Elizabeth's in the inpatient setting. That person was in jail. They asked me to do it because it was outside of the hospital.
The person, excuse me, to do the juvenile remediation, do you have to have a specialty such as dealing with juveniles to do that? Or?
I am not sure what Ms. Sawyer, I haven't hired her. Dr. Johnson will tell you, which criteria she had when she hired Ms. Sawyer to do that. It's a part-time, of course, it's a part-time. We don't have many juveniles. We have one now that is coming our way, and there's a lot more adults than juveniles, at least.
It's remarkable. I would have thought that it would be, if not more, I would have thought it would be pretty well balanced with so much of the issues that we're seeing with these young people and their issues.
I don't know how much the issue of competency to proceed though is brought up. I think that what they try to do with juveniles is more of a therapeutic approach where they diverted from the juvenile justice system per se, right? I used to work in a juvenile detention center in Maryland, though. So, but I think Dr. Johnson has a much better, overall view of, what's done and why.
Okay. All right. We're
Thank you, sir.
pressed your clock, so I thank you for
thank you.
the extra
Appreciate
few minutes. We may reach back to you if we have other questions.
Send me an email or call me, okay?
Okay.
In the morning,
Nice.
all right?
In the morning?
Yes.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Excuse me. Process ideas. Okay, the ladies one. I should have paid attention, boy. I did like you ate something.